Welcome to the Micky and Woody Show with me, Uno Boller, and the tightest man in rugby league, Micky Ayum. Where this week, we're giving it Giggsy till end of season. In association with Get a Tax Rebate, 1895 Sports, Mesa Vienna Aesthetics, CDX Security. Okay, welcome to episode 12 of the Micky and Woody Show with my little mate, Micky. How you doing, pal?
All right, Woody, pal, I'm all right. See, you've got sported a new nice hoodie there. A retro Fat Willie's hoodie. Didn't know they still made them.
Well, my missus has just been down Cornwall with the kids and they brought it back. So, thought I'd support it today. But I tell you what, I'm in mourning. I'm in mourning today because...
I know why. You've lost the beard, haven't you? The beard's gone.
I shaved the beard last night and I'm absolutely devastated. I'm gutted. So I'll roll on 2 or 3 weeks when I just get a bit of facial hair back. But someone said I look old this week. So I thought I'm going to shave my beard. They said I'm licking my edge. So how's your week been?
Yeah, all right, mate. Again, I know it's a bit of old news, but obviously gyms are finally reopened this week. So it's just the big cleans in progress now. Going to spend a few more hours later, try and get it all ready, for the big opening. So, yeah, a few people they're banging on the door ready to come. So it's going to be hectic these next few weeks, but so you've got to take it while you can. So, yeah, you've been all right?
Yeah, mate, yeah. And your clients will be happy to know that I give you an assault bike this week, didn't I? And you're going to put that in the gym.
Yeah, I've just done a bit on it, actually. Get you them assault bikes, don't they? You can make them as hard or as easy as you want, but it's tough. So I'll introduce a few clients to the assault bike.
I'll pick that 400 quid up as well after. So
get a brand new one for 350.
Right, mate. Let's go on. You bring our guest in, mate, because it's all your handiwork.
Yeah, you can thank me this week, Woody. Again, we've had some brilliant guests, but up to now, I don't think there's anybody higher honour in the game of football. Certainly, one of the most decorated players in football. I think he held the most record Premier League appearances. I still think I don't know if he's still got it or it might have been surpassed, but we don't need to worry about that. 13 Premier League medals, 4 FA Cups, 2 Champions Leagues. I think it was a total of, I don't know if it was 670 odd appearances in total, which is, it might even be more. You might correct me on that, but fantastic achievement. One of Wales' all-time greatest players and coach. It's a real pleasure and honour to have Ryan Giggs OBE on. Hiya, Ryan, and thanks for joining us.
Hi, mate. Hi, Paul. You okay?
Yeah, good, mate. Are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, good to be on.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. It's a real good coup for us. We are 2 rugby lads, but we're a sports podcast, and we're trying to get into other sports persons' minds in from different sports. And there's nobody better than yourself to just give us a little bit of insight into your upbringing, your career, your local lad as well. You're from down the road, so I think it'd be a really interesting podcast and one that we can't wait.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic because we've gone from having the most decorated player in rugby league in Sean Edwards, and then this week we have the most decorated footballer, that's played in this country. So, what a great 2 weeks we've had. It's interesting to hear, Ryan, we can speak about your trophies all day, but what we're interested in is the background towards it, because we all know when you're involved in sport, sometimes people see the 80 minutes for it in our case, but the 90 minutes for you, and you can lift a trophy. But behind the scenes, there's a shitload of hard work that goes in behind it. There's injuries, you've got to deal with players, falling out. You've got to deal with your coach, So we're really interested to hear about, what was it like for you as a player at Man United. But I think what we'll do is we'll start off and touch on the fact that you did actually play rugby league as a young kid when you moved over to Manchester.
Yeah, I did. I mean, the reason I moved from Cardiff to Manchester is my dad was a rugby player, so he moved from rugby union, playing in South Wales, to signing professional, because I was amateur then, rugby union, and he signed for Swinton. So that's the whole reason I moved to Manchester when I was 7. And I was lucky in the respect that I would go and watch my dad home and away. He would take me training. So I got, at an early age, an insight on what it takes to be a sportsman. And, you know, when they would train at Station Road, the old Swinton ground, and, you know, it wasn't like probably I got used to in the end with Carrington, Man United.
Yeah.
It was proper spit and sawdust. The gym was underneath the stand, and it would be like jogging around the pitch. But it was great for me at a young age, 10, 11, you know, getting an insight into what it was to be a sportsman.
Yeah, it's and I think you played. I think, did you play both rugby and football as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be unheard of, and you probably did it when you were younger. I mean, I played for Salford Boys Saturday morning, Langworthy Saturday afternoon. Then I would play for my Sunday League team, Dean's, Sunday morning, and then I would play for Salford Rugby Sunday afternoon. So I was getting 4 games in a weekend, which was brilliant. You know, I was turning up at rugby in the afternoon with still mud on my knees. But it made me robust. It made me not scared of the physical aspect, because quite often at football I would play like a year above, 2 years above, and I was never scared because I had that sort of rugby background, and that, you know, I was used to that physicality with rugby, and I loved playing rugby. When I had to make a decision, I signed schoolboy forms for United at 14. I had to stop playing rugby, and I was gutted. I would still play the odd game, but I had to stop because at that age, you know, if you got injured, it would have been a disaster. But I was gutted when I had to stop. But, you know, I had a choice to make, and I chose football.
What position did you play at rugby, Ryan?
Well, for Langworthy, for Langworthy and Salford, I played standoff. But then as you got better, I remember going to, I went to Robin Park for trials for Lancashire. And it was a big step up, you know, all the lads from Wigan. And I ended up playing on the wing then, because the standoff position was taken by this better player. So I ended up being on the wing. You know, I was quick, and I was also the kicker as well. So, I started off at standoff. That's what my dad played. So I was, you know, I've watched him for years play that position. And, you know, I had good balance, quick. But yeah, then I got pushed out onto the wing.
Can you remember any of the players that played amateur rugby at that time who went on to play in the professional game?
No, there was only Moz's brother. So Chris was my age. So I played against Chris at school. He played he was at, what were the St Lawrence's or Hope High in Salford. So my school would play against Chris's school, and then that's how I later got on to know Moza really well. Because of his, you know, I obviously played against his brother quite a lot.
I think Chris Moller still thinks he's a schoolboy, doesn't he? He's not changed in 30 years, has he, Chris? As a character. But yeah, I've done a little bit of homework on you, mate. I sort of being a smaller world and from around this neck of the woods. You was England schoolboys captain, I believe.
Yeah. And
then went on to be like the most Welsh player. What was your decision in that? Obviously, being England schoolboys captain, you know, I think every England footballer supporter over the past 25 years has always said we wish we'd have had. Loads of people I know wish they'd have said they'd have had Ryan Giggs on the left wing for England. We'd have probably won more. What was it a difficult choice making that decision when you moved further up?
No, it wasn't actually a choice that I had. The confusion comes because I've just said that, you know, I grew up in Salford, and I went to an English school. So I was Salford boy. I played for Salford Boys football. So then the trials, it's the local areas, they go for England schoolboys. So I couldn't have actually played for Wales schoolboys because I didn't go to a Welsh school.
Right.
So I could only play for England schoolboys. So I played 9 games. I was captain. It was a brilliant experience. Played at Wembley. But then I knew the next year I would be playing for the Wales youth team. So under 16s, I played for Wales.
Right.
So I couldn't have actually played for Wales schoolboys, and I couldn't have played for England national team because I only had residency. And back then it was family. My mum and dad are Welsh. My grandparents are Welsh, and I was born in Wales. So I had no affiliation to England apart from I lived in England.
Fair enough.
But the confusion comes is because I played for England schoolboys. So people, why don't you choose England?
Yeah, well, we've cleared that one now. It's put everybody at ease there, hasn't it?
Ryan, would you like to? Sorry, mate. I think there's a delay here, so I keep butting in. Could you just elaborate a little bit more on Alex Ferguson, basically? Because you was at Man City as a schoolboy for a couple of years, and then Alex Ferguson decided to turn up at your house and offer you a contract at the age of 14.
Well, I think when you look back, and you probably had the same, just like fate, really. I mean, I was playing for Grosvenor Road Primary School, and it just happened that a milkman, Dennis Schofield, an old coach of mine, he was a milkman finishing his round, but he looked after Deans, who were the local Sunday League team. He seen a football match, stopped his milk float, come over, watched me play. Then my mum was watching. He approached my mum and said, "Listen, would Ryan like to come down to play for Deans on the next Sunday?" So I went down, played for Deans, and at the time, Dennis was a Man City scout. So he was a Man City fan, and he worked for Manchester City as a scout. So then 3 or 4 of us from Deans would go down and play for City and train for City, and that was all because of Dennis. I was a United fan though. So even though I really enjoyed it and City were brilliant, I was always a United fan. And then again, it was fate. I played for Salford Boys. They played at Lower Broughton Road, right next to the cliff where United trained. So by this time, I was 13 and Sir Alex Ferguson had got to hear about me and got told to go down and watch me. So before training one day, he come down and watched Salford Boys, which is unheard of now. You know, the manager of Man United coming watching under 14s game was, you know, it just wouldn't happen. But that was his dedication to youth football. He heard about this young player. He was at City, but was a United fan. So again, same as Dennis' situation. He watched me play, approached my mum, and just said, you know, can Ryan come down and see if he likes it at United? The following week, I went down for a week's trial, stayed in dorms in Salford University, loved it, and then the rest really is history. From then on, I never went back to City, and I played for United.
And I think, was it 672 games in Man United? Is that what the
league games? Yeah, I think it's like 900 altogether. 900
in total. Yeah, I know. I knew I was way off before. As soon as I said it, I thought it was like over 800. I do remember seeing it now. Yeah, yeah. You've got a couple of. I remember another stat of yours. You're the first player to win the Young Player of the Year, didn't you? Back to back in the Premier League. You know, I think that just said enough of you, what you were as a player and a person. You know, to win that back to back, to win anything back to back is fantastic. But certainly in a tough league like the Premier League, to win a Young Player of the Year back to back, and first player to score 100 goals for Man United, which being a Man United fan like yourself, I think it's stuff. I don't know. I think you dream of that as a kid, don't you? Like you would have say you're a Wigan lad, aren't you? You know, you probably dream when you're a kid of you're playing for your Wiggins, and I don't know. There's something special about being a sports lad and playing for your hometown team that you support. It's some remarkable achievements, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I had fate or luck. I got into the team at an early age at 17, but at the time, Lee Sharp was left winger, really brilliant player playing for England, and he got injured. Before that, I was thinking I've got no chance. He's the best left winger in Britain, perhaps in Europe at the time. But he got injured. I got my chance and I took it, which is what you've got to do as a young player. If you get given a chance, I was at a club where a manager believed in young players. So, yeah, I had the 2 years back-to-back, PFA Young Player of the Year. I was in a really good team. You know what it's like. If you're in a good team, it's so much easier with good players around you. So the first couple of years was brilliant for me. The first time I had sort of a setback was my third year, really, my third proper year. And I'd never been injured, even playing, when I was younger. And I got a little calf strain, and it was a 2 or 3 week job. After 10 days, I thought, I'm okay. I can't feel it. First game back, went in first 15, 20 minutes. And that season was a real struggle for me. I only scored 4 or 5 goals or something. And I just kept getting these niggly little injuries. And it was a really bad year for me. So I'd gone like 2 years brilliant, 1 year. And in the long run, it helped me because, it toughens you up when you get injuries and when you get setbacks. I didn't really have I didn't really have a platform to go back to because I'd never really experienced it. But it really stood me in good stead going for the rest of my career. When you're injured, make sure you do your rehab, make sure you're right when you come back. And it was a brilliant first 2 years. And then the third year, it was a hard year. And it's, what it's like when you're injured, it's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
I never really had a bad injury, but even if you're out for a few weeks and you've got to watch the lads train and watch them play, it's horrible.
Yeah, I think that's the tough. Sorry, Paul. That's the tough side of sport that I think a lot of people don't see. They're doing this and that, and you're earning this, and you're running around with your mates. But there's some dark times, isn't there? When especially if you have I say yourself, when you've had some longer term injuries, haven't you? When you're in early in the morning on your own, the lads have gone home, you're back doing your rehab and stuff in the afternoon. There's a lot of things that people don't see, and the sacrifices you make. And I think it's good that I think we can kind of, somebody like yourself has experienced that. And like you say, it does really keeps you grounded, don't it? That you really you work hard, because something like an injury, a serious injury, could take your career away so quickly. And I always said to the young lads who in the clubs I've been at, make sure you do them little things right. I know you want to get home and play on the poker table and the Xbox and all that, but just little things in it, looking after yourself, and even like education away from here as well. Always try and think of things to better yourself and do. It's a point I've always made that.
No, definitely.
There's obviously as a 17-year-old lad, and for Sir Alex Ferguson to put you in as a young lad, obviously he must have felt that you was adequate enough to fit in a Manchester United team like that. But how did Alex Ferguson deal with his young players and keep them grounded? Because you could say a 17-year-old playing in a Manchester United team could quite easily lose their head and sort of think that they're bigger than they are. So how did he sort of what man management style would he use, Alex Ferguson there?
No, he was the master at man management and sort of the psychology part of dealing with every person differently, because everyone's different. So I made a really big mistake when I was about 15. I was playing for the youth team, and the manager used to always come and watch the youth team. So we come in at half time. I'd done okay, or I thought I'd done okay. And he'd come in, and we had a youth team coach, Eric Harrison, tough, from Halifax. He was tough. And he's already having a go at me at half time. Alex Ferguson comes in, sort of pushes Eric Harrison out of the way, and then he goes for me. And right, if you had a hairdryer where he's right in front of you, and it feels like a hairdryer is right next to your face. So he's right in my face. I'm 15. And I made the mistake. It was a mistake, really. The second half, I went out, I scored a couple of goals and played really well. So now the manager knows for the next 20 years how to get the best out of me. Just give him a bollocking. So he knew how to get the best out of me. So, for 20 years, we had massive ding-dongs. The thing about the manager was he would go for you, and I mean big time, and he would go for players. The next day it was forgotten. The next day it was as if it hadn't happened, which was great. No, you'd have an argument or you'd have a blowout, and then after the game it was finished. But he also treated people like Cantona, Cristiano Ronaldo, Roy Keane a little bit differently. He didn't really. Brian Robson when I first got into the team. I never seen him have a go at them sort of players. And And I think he just thought, what's the point? What's the point of these all great players? What's the point of having a go at them? They're not going to react in that sort of way. He was a more put an arm around the shoulder and eventually they'll come good. So the likes of me, Scholes, Beckham, he would have a pop at. Other players he would put an arm round and just treat them differently. But he figured out quite quickly what sort of personality you had, whether you could take it, or whether you maybe needed an arm around the shoulder, or maybe you just left alone. And sooner or later, cream will rise to the top and you'll come good.
Do you know what? It's interesting you said that. The players that you just mentioned, Eric Cantona, Roy Keane, who was the one that you mentioned, Cristiano Ronaldo. You would imagine that they were the players he would bollock because they were seen as the tough guys of football, really. So it's interesting that you said that. Do you think those type of players, because of the personalities and the persona that they give, whether the tough players, do you think Sir Alex would have thought, these guys are they're gonna get the backup. They're gonna get the backup. It's not the type of player I need to be shouting at here.
Yeah, well, I think, for example, Roy's standards were always high, both in training and in games, and he very rarely had a bad game. So he knew that if it was going to be a bad game, it was going to be a one-off, and he would come good the next game probably. Eric, even his teammates, because Eric was, he was a magician. He was a brilliant player, but even his teammates would get the ump sometimes because if he hadn't scored a couple of goals, he's not going to be running around, closing people down, that sort of player. He's like the one who's going to win you the game. But again, Ferguson just knew that what's the point of having a go at him? In 2 or 3 games' time, he could be the match winner. So he handled him differently. And Cristiano was again different. Come to the country as a young player, 17, hardly spoke the language. And he just Cristiano just seen Sir Alex as a father figure. So he just looked up to him and again just treated him just a little bit differently. I'm not saying that they never, the manager never, there'd be the odd time that he would have a pop at them, but very rarely. Whereas me, Beckham, Scholes, it would be, 7, 8 times a season where we'd have a ding dong.
Do you think on yourself, Scholes, Beckham, maybe Neville, whatever, do you think it's because you lads come through together at that period? He had his young lads, and I think, like I say, he knew. I think he felt comfortable that he could say that to you. Do you think that was an element of it because he'd known you since he was young?
Yeah, and definitely, and maybe he knew what we were capable of. So if we dropped below them standards, then he would be on top of us straight away. Yeah. Also, I think when we were a little bit older, if you're a young player coming from maybe another team or even another country, and you see Sir Alex Ferguson having a go at Giggs and Scholes, then it's like, oh, if them two are getting it, anyone can get it. Do you know what I mean? So it was making sure that they're bubbling just right as well, and they weren't, dropping their standards as well.
Yeah, going back to, I know we give him a mention most weeks, don't we, Micky? Tony Smith,
our old coach.
Our old coach at Warrington, and very similar. And he used to openly say to us, he'd say, I won't treat Paul Wood the same as Adrian Morley, because Adrian Morley's, he's older than me, he's more experienced than me. He'd played in both hemispheres. He'd won a grand final in the southern and the northern hemisphere. So it were completely, different things. And I think that's what great managers show is that, they do treat people as individuals. To think that you've got a squad of, say 20 to 30 players and think that you can just shout at everybody like you could, you said you liked a bit of a spray or a rocket up your arse and you perform better. I think if a manager tends to think that's the only approach they can have, I just don't think it generally doesn't work well. No,
and also, there'd be the times where we were, maybe struggling for form, and he would put an arm around you. It's not every time, he would gauge it just right. So that's why, as well as many other, obviously, talents that the manager had, that was one of the best, that he just knew how to handle every individual. and get the best out of them.
Every single week that we're on here and we speak about coaches, I think that is definitely the key message that comes out of these talks, is that the managers, Mozza said it last week about Dougie Lawton. Tactically, it wasn't the best at his rugby tactics, but his man management was absolutely outstanding. So I think it's a great message for coaches, and I know a lot of amateur coaches listen to the podcast. About having that empathy for players. Whether we put our arms around them or whether we give them a kick up the arse, but there are different approaches to be seen. Just touching on the early days at Manchester United. How did you find it? Was it a completely different contrast from when you first joined and you was with Brian Robson, you was with Brian McClure, Cantona, Lee Shirt, Paul Ince? Was that a different culture than when, say, like the Neville brothers came through, Paul Scholes, Micky Butt? Were they two different types of environments at that time?
No, I mean, they were probably similar because when Scholesy and Becks and Butt come through, it was only like 3 or 4 years apart, really. I think later on in my career, it was a completely different environment, different individuals. It was a different place to be. I'd come into a real harsh sort of environment, and it was actually below that with the apprentices and the reserves. There was definitely a hierarchy where the reserves would put the second-year apprentices, put them in their place, and the second-year apprentices would put the first-year apprentices. Apprentices would put the schoolboys in their place. So, I mean, you were constantly on edge around the training ground because you got, it was not a very nice environment at times, especially for young players, coming in and you had to do a song or you had to do a joke or you had to, it would be 30 seconds and it would be over with. But you get people at 15, 16, they're not comfortable singing in front of 40 lads or telling a joke. And it would be an absolute nightmare and they wouldn't do it, so then you would get punished and but then that all went towards the end of the career and towards the end of my career, and it was a different environment. And it has to be a different environment because we're in different times now.
Yeah, definitely. I see. It was even probably when we first broke through at rugby, like Woody, wasn't it? You kind of had to earn your stripes, didn't you? A little bit. Yeah. It was you had to earn your place. Like remember we had Paul Cullen on. He was played for Warrington in the 80s, 90s. He said he walked into the first team dressing room. They went, "No, you're not in this one, pal. Get down the corridor." He even had different dressing rooms for different runs of players. It's but obviously times have changed. Just moving on, mate, to your Premier League. You're in one of the most successful teams for many years with your Premier League winners medals. What was the motivation year on year to keep winning it? I know every sportsman, you play to win, but what kept you motivated? Use a team to keep winning and winning.
I don't know. I think something that I never witnessed because I was only at United. But what I would get from new players coming in would be the intensity in training. It wouldn't be the same at other clubs. So at United, it was like even little five-a-side games I wanted to win. And if you didn't win, you were in a right mood for the rest of the day. And that was just the culture that was within United. So I think constantly looking over your shoulder, is the manager going to get rid of you? Is the manager going to bring someone in your position? Because every summer at United, some players are coming in. There's massive speculation. So you're just constantly looking to improve, and every day in the training ground looking to improve as well, and just trying to keep that desire. Because if you didn't, you were out. It was as simple as that.
Yeah.
You lads know when you're at the top, the manager is always looking to change. He's always looking to improve. Even if you've won a cup or a league, you can't stand still. So you wanted to be part of that.
Tactically, would things change? Because we found that we wouldn't change dramatically, but we'd sort of try and change a little bit of our play. And I think that for me, from our coach at the time, kept us engaged a little bit. So we wasn't doing the same thing year on, year out. So, for example, you know, we were sort of one of the first teams where we dropped 3 players back early in the tackle. So we had a fullback and wingers really dropped back, and we tried to encourage them to run at us out wide, really. And that was just a small, subtle change in our defensive plan, but it sort of give us. It was like creating something new, so it kept our enthusiasm buzzing. Did Sir Alex do that, or did he keep things the same throughout?
No, I mean, we would have a basic sort of principles of, you know, attacking football. We'll score more goals than you, but definitely he would tweak the tactics. For example, we more or less were a 4-4-2 or a number 10 dropping in, but then towards the end of the 90s, he would change it a little bit and go 3 midfield, and that was to try and win in Europe, because we felt that we were getting overrun in Europe. They would always have an extra midfielder potentially. So the manager would change that aspect, but it would just be little tweaks, really. For example, I wouldn't be stood out on the wing. I'd be tucked in a little bit, or Beckham would be tucked in a little bit, and I would give the width. So we would have the same principles, but just tweak things, really. And again, I think rather than tactically, of course, tactics changed, but personnel would come in, and you know, you'd be looking at brilliant players coming in, and that would give everyone a lift. But yeah, tactically, yeah, you'd have to change from game to game. But I think that's where the manager was lucky, that he had a nucleus of players who'd been there a long time, who knew how to play the Man United way, but also were able to adjust to a little tactical tweak, say in Europe or against the Liverpool or Chelsea or a bigger team.
Do you know, just on your game plans and your tactics leading into games, obviously on the rugby side of it, we do our video in the week and say, right, you know, we might target, I don't know, St Helens' right side. You know, they've got weak defender, you know, somebody comes in, you know, we can get them through the middle, gain off our line, play quick. What was it like with football? Obviously, you know, would you pick certain players out? You know, it's always something I've been interested in. That what kind of, like, obviously
the detail of sort of like
game plan for each, you know, like your opposition. You know, you're playing Norwich City one week, and you might have Chelsea or, you know, Man City the week after. I don't know what kind of things you look for in other teams. You know, is there?
Yeah, I mean, it did vary. I mean, more often than not, like the lesser teams at home, we perhaps wouldn't do much tactically. Because we just believed that we had the better players. Sometimes we'd come unstuck for that. Sometimes, you know, we would start sloppy, and the manager would have to come in at half time and change things. But more often than not, we just overcome it because we had better players and we had a way of playing. And as soon as we got to Old Trafford, everyone would just defend. So it's about breaking down that defensive part. I think as my career went on, there would be a lot more video analysis. There would be a lot more analysis on the opposition. The manager was really, I'd always, right from the beginning, say I was playing against a right back that he thought was perhaps defensively poor inside, or something, Ryan run him inside because he's poor, I've watched him, or little things like that. He would go around the individuals and do that. Right. But yeah, we would definitely do analysis on the opposition, but we would very often concentrate on ourselves.
Right.
But that's something that I'm glad that I was with Louis van Gaal at the end. I was assistant because he had a different approach than Sir Alex. So it was great for my coaching, going into the coaching, that I was seeing someone who worked a little bit different and was a lot more on the video analysis. And yeah, I've probably took that into the international arena because you can do, because you've got a little bit more time with the players during the week and you haven't got much time on the grass. So you have to get your point across and your tactics across by video analysis.
At Get a Tax Rebate, we make it easy for you or your business to claim back thousands of pounds in tax. Most people, like Jane and Philip, don't realise that they are owed money from HMRC, so they never claim. All you need to do is fill out a simple form on our website and we'll do the rest. It's that simple. We've also helped business owners claim back millions of pounds in research and development R&D tax credits. So if you're working in a business or own one, contact us today to see if we can help you claim back tax and improve your cash flow. Get a Tax Rebate, your tax refund concierge.
$18.95 Sports and State of Mind, the ultimate lineup.
Micky Vienna Aesthetics based in Wigan. For all your wrinkle treatments, dermal fillers, lip enhancement, energy boost injections, immune boost injections. Please visit us on Facebook or Instagram at Micky Vienna Aesthetics.
CDX Security, proudly supporting Rugby League.
Touching on you personally, Ryan, I remember as a young lad watching United. Little bit of trivia here for you. Not many people know, but my great granddad signed for Arsenal in 1920. We've got a book at my grandma's house with him in. So my interest in football, basically, I was like an Arsenal fan really as a young lad because of that stat.
Right.
But I remember watching you at United, and also it wasn't just your football. You was probably first a pin-up boy before David Beckham. You was the David Beckham of your. You was the David Beckham of your time, because I remember going to high school. And you having your longer black curtains, and like all the girls
Not
at
anymore.
school. All the girls loved you at school. You was this type of pin-up boy. And how did Alex Ferguson deal with that? Because I don't know personally, and it's just from what I read in the papers. But when David Beckham sort of went like that, it didn't really seem to bode well with him, because he didn't like his players to become bigger than the football club, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, I just talked about sort of the injuries when I had a really bad year, third year, and then I was okay. Then I had another tricky spell where, like you say, I'm getting offers from things outside of football. So sponsorship outside of football, photo shoots and all that sort of thing. And I did it, but I didn't enjoy it, and I felt at times it interfered with my football. So I sort of really stepped back. As I'm stepping back, then David Beckham comes into the team. So I probably wouldn't have needed to step back anyway, because he would have took over, which he did anyway. But Bex actually was a different character from me. He, I wouldn't say he enjoyed it, but he felt comfortable. And it never really affected his football. He would still produce performances. Towards the end, it became a little bit of a problem with himself and Sir Alex, and he left. But with me, it was something that I enjoyed first of all. But then, rather than going home after training and resting, you're going to a photo shoot, or you're getting the train to London and doing something, a sponsorship. And it was like, in the end, it was like, I'm tired. It's too much. I don't want to do it. So I sort of stepped back a little bit from it. But Bex, it never affected his football. So he was quite comfortable doing it. So we were sort of two different characters in that respect.
Martin Afire, we was talking to Martin Afire, and sort of, we grew up in the 90s watching rugby league. Sean Edwards, Martin Afire, Andy Farrell, and these players were sort of iconic at the time, and I believe that they were bigger stars than anything we've got now. And when we asked Martin Afire that question, he said, it's about, get it, if you've got it on the field as well, but then creating it off it. And I think you're right what you say. I know players that sort of have done it in rugby as well. They've tried to brand themselves off the field because, you've got to look after yourself. Yourself is an asset. You want to brand yourself, and I get it. But you're right. I think, if it's affecting your on-field stuff, then you've got to pull away with it. I think it takes a specific type of player to be able to go out like Micky. You could never do a photo shoot like I do, could you?
Well, no, because you model balaclavas and masks, aren't you, and gloves?
Gloves. But that. Sorry, mate. Go on, Micky.
No. Go on. You carry on. I'll let you have your moment there. When Micky touched on it earlier, you had the younger lads then coming through. You had the Neville brothers, the Nicky Butts, and that was sort of because it's interesting when you look at Alex Ferguson when he comes into Manchester United as a coach. The first couple of years is a mid-table team. Now that's sort of happening at United since he's left. They've not necessarily given him a great deal of time with the managers, but they give Alex Ferguson that. That bit of time and to build a team that he wanted to build. And then obviously this dynasty sort of came in then. Yeah. And it's quite unheard of. I mean, in rugby terms, Leeds Rhinos had it. They had a nucleus of players coming through the academy. And Manchester United, you had, Nicky Butt, Paul Scholes, the Neville brothers, and David Beckham coming through. And then this sort of created a big legacy in Manchester United.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a cult. It's a culture as well. These lads have come through the ranks. They love Man United, and then the superstars who you buy in or the players who you buy in, then quickly learn within the dressing room. Sir Alex Ferguson never went in the dressing room in training. I think if you've seen Sir Alex in the dressing room at training, you thought, "Oh, what was I doing last night?" Because something big's going to come down. And you think someone's in trouble here. He let the players police the dressing room himself. But he was lucky in the respect that he had myself, the players you just mentioned, Roy Keane, and we would look after the new players coming in. We would, if they weren't pulling their weight, we would tell them. And also if they were doing well, we'd, say how well they're doing. So we really policed it. And it's in any team, doesn't matter if you've got great players, you've got to have that team spirit and you've got to have that culture, which sort of you create over time and with the consistency of the players that we had.
Just on the back of that, obviously since Sir Alex left and, the nucleus of all them players over the years, when you had that great core going through, what do you think has been missing for Man United since Sir Alex left? And why is the success not there? Is it just the players you think are not good? I say you don't have to answer the question. It's whether it's a bit too controversial. I don't know. I'm just saying because since they've not won a great deal of things, for quite a number of years now. What?
Yeah, I mean, obviously David Moyes come in after Sir Alex. He didn't probably get the support that he needed in regards to bringing players in. Right. He was in a difficult spot because we'd just won the league. So he was actually inheriting the Premier League champions. But a lot of the players were sort of coming towards the end. So it was difficult for David to manage them players coming towards the end and also bringing new players in as well. And sometimes that takes time. Then obviously David, he didn't last the season. And then sort of we're chasing it. And then the recruitment was sort of all over the place. So then you've got Sir Alex Ferguson players, you've got David Moyes players, then Louis van Gaal comes in, different philosophy, you've got Louis van Gaal players, then Mourinho comes in, you've got Mourinho, and Mourinho's inherited, he's got a team then of still Ferguson players, Moyes players, Louis van Gaal players, now Mourinho players. So you've got a real mix of sort of what I just talked about, culture, adding Man United players. And to get rid of that takes a long time. Together with Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, Pochettino, 3 brilliant coaches coming into the Premier League. So they're going like that, and Man United are sort of stuttering. You get it in rugby, obviously, during the 80s, Wigan, Widnes, and then St Helens comes, and Leeds comes, and Warrington, So you get cycles as well. And and it's very hard to keep. But I think now we're sort of, you look, as me as a United fan, I'm looking at the United players and thinking, yeah, them players, you enjoy watching them. They might not win every game, but they look like Man United players.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that the coaches that have been in there, you said, David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, do you think Mourinho, do you think that they should have been given more time? Because I've just mentioned about Sir Alex Ferguson there, he didn't reach success straight away. He's a mid-table team coming in. So do you think that they should have been given more time? Because, we all know that in sport, I know that the owners think a little bit differently. They'd like success straight away, but we know as players, it doesn't come like that. It can take up to 3 to 5 years before you start seeing changes. Do you think more time should have been given?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because it's sort of different circumstance. I mean, I know that Sir Alex was struggling a little bit and nearly lost his job. But, when you see David Moyes, Louis van Gaal and Maria, there's planes flying across Old Trafford, wanting them out. There's fans leaving. There's constant media scrutiny. It's different times. It's just, you don't get time. You could be the best manager ever, and then 3 defeats later, you're getting talked about losing your job.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it's all, unless, that's why the owners are really important. You're going to a club where there's stability, where they are going to give you time, they are going to back you. And then if you don't do it, you don't do it, But I think with Jurgen Klopp, for example, I think this is his 5th season. But each year he's improved. You can see the improvement, you can see the culture. It's took a bit of time to get players out, which is important, not just bringing the players in, actually getting the players that perhaps you don't fancy or don't have the right culture getting them out. So, it's a different sort of, it's a different sort of times that we're in now. You just don't get time.
Yeah. Do you know what, as well? I remember, round about 2003 mark, though, Ryan, where you had a dip in form and you was getting booed by the Manchester United fans. Yeah. And that amazes me because, to think that if the fans had their way at that specific time, they would have had you out, the booing you. You went on to have 10 years of great success at Manchester United. And I think it's imperative sometimes. There's no knee-jerk reactions in sport. No. Because like you say, constantly, there's not just in teams, there's cycles in the player's career. There's ups, there's downs. I played for 17 years and my career is like this. You know what I mean? It's not a bed of roses constantly. So do you think that sometimes, do you get frustrated with the fans sometimes when you hear what they've got to say because they want that immediate change?
Yeah, I mean, as a player, you do. But I think that year, 2003, I wasn't playing well. I ended up, and there is a bit of, I've been here 10, 11 years. I've won 6 leagues. But fans don't think like that. Fans are thinking for that game now, and perhaps rightly so. So, yeah, it can be frustrating. And you do, especially sort of over that era, fans were only used to United winning. Only used to winning trophies. And when you lose a game at Old Trafford, it's like the end of the world. So, and that's what you want. You want pressure like that as a player. But, fans can be like that. A lot of the fans, you think there's 75,000. It only takes a couple of hundred to start booing. And that's it's a minority. But that's the way it is now, and you have to come through that. You have to be strong.
Yeah. There's I love the guy, Andy, the Manchester United guy. We used it as a bit of a clip to advertise this week's podcast, but, where he's saying, anybody but Moyes, give it Giggsy till the end of the season. and you know what? That's it. I get the passion for the fans, and I love it sometimes, but I think that the Reds run with emotion. They get so heavily involved. I don't get this mentality of, it dictates how they feel through the week. If United win on a Saturday, they have a great week. If they lose, they have a shit week. It's like there's not more to life than football or rugby. Do you still get that with the fans like coming over to you, and you know, how do you get treated when you go back to Manchester United? Especially with what's happening now, you know, because they're not you know, where they're sitting, is it 5th or 6th in the league?
Yeah, I mean, over the last few years, it's not been nice, you know, what's happening, and it's not been nice for me. But you know, my mates are United fans, and it has been a bit of a roller coaster. But I'm saying, you know, you have to be patient. You know, we will come back. Yeah, it is, you know, everyone has cycles, but it is frustrating, especially over the last 25 years, if you're used to success. You know, you have some teams who aren't used to success, whose fans are constantly, even if they're doing well, we'll mess up, don't worry, we always mess up. But yeah, that's fans' mentality. And like we said at the start, they're only the ones who see the 90 minutes. They don't see the work going on during the week. You know, maybe someone's carrying an injury. Maybe someone's been ill. Maybe you know, there's different reasons why you might not turn up on that particular time. But fans go to Old Trafford. They expect, no matter who you're playing, every game to win and entertained and scoring goals. And if that doesn't happen, then it's a disaster.
Just touching on, you know, we were nearly time now. I know you're a busy man and you've got a few things on. Now, just touching on final a little bit, just about your coaching career now. You know, I take it, obviously, you do enjoy the coaching side. How are you finding that? You know, obviously being a player for a number of years at the top, now coaching at the top. You know, how you find your coaching career?
No, I'm enjoying it. I mean, it's completely different from a player. I had a good schooling, 2 years under Louis van Gaal as assistant, which got me on the grass, taking training sessions, which I think is really important. Because as a player, you know, you just turn up, you train, you sort of get told what to do, everything's out for you. As a coach, it's completely different. You know, you're out there setting up an hour before, and then you're watching the videos. But I really enjoyed it. Like I said, a really good schooling with Louis, and now I'm enjoying it with Wales. It has its frustrations, international football, because you don't have the players for a long time. My next game's in September because of what's happened. I haven't seen the players for 10 months. So it could be a completely different team. You know, in regards to recruitment, you need good coaches around you. I've got good staff around me, but I'm enjoying it. Especially when you win, you enjoy it. When you lose, especially international football, it is all about results. So if you lose, you're out. If you win, then you're the best thing since sliced bread.
You know what? I get it. I mean, when I retired from playing, I worked with Micky at Lee, went coaching at the Centurions, and that's what I didn't enjoy. I didn't enjoy the fact that I had to be in well earlier than the players. I had to stay behind well after the players, and I was like, I don't want to be in this environment anymore. Because I wanted to be with the players. I wanted to do what they were doing. You know, I made a completely different transition. But would you have liked to serve your time under Sir Alex? I know you obviously played with him, but would you have liked to have spent some time, you know, as an assistant to Sir Alex? Would that have been a dream for you?
Yeah, I would have, because you know what it's like as a player. You know, you only see so much of the coach when you're playing under them. It's not the same as when you are coaching. You know, you don't get an insight on preparation and the reasons why. So it would have been nice. Which I've seen his man management and different tweaks that he did in his managerial career. But no, it would have been good. But towards the end, to be fair, he spoke a lot. You know, I played till I was 40, so between 35 and 40, I spoke to him a lot about the tactical and the coaching side.
Do you ever touch base with him now then and just ask him for that advice? And does he hang around like the United club, you know, a lot, even though he's not coaching?
He goes to games. I think the odd time he'll go down to the training ground. But yeah, I do speak to him. I speak to him about, you know, if I've got potentially a difficult decision to make. I do get his advice on certain things, but ultimately it's down to you. You've got to be your own person. You take the best bits out of Sir Alex, out of Louis. But ultimately it's down to you. So It's nice to get. That's what I do with my coaching staff. I say, listen, I want you to give me all the information, give me your thoughts. And that's what I did with Louis. Louis, you know, as a coach and a manager, it's very different because you'll have different views to the manager. The coach will have different. But then once the manager makes that decision, you have to go with him, whether you agree or not. And that's what I say to my coaching staff. Give me all your points of view. But, you know, when I make the decision, that's what we're going with.
Brilliant.
As well, away from your coaching, you were in business with Gary Neville as well, aren't you, doing your hospitality thing? So how does that take up your time? Because you must be a busy guy with your football, and then you've got your hospitality, and then you're involved in the Salford City Football Club as well. So you must be a busy man.
No, honestly, it's more the setting up. So, I mean, me and Gary lived in the same apartment block when we were about 29, 30. So we started talking about life after football around then. He finished a little bit early, obviously, went to Sky, stuff like that. Also, you know, we did our coaching badges together, and then obviously we've got a couple of hotels and restaurants. Once they're set up, you know, it's the experts, they look after it, the general managers, you know, the people who know what they're doing. The tough bit is obviously setting it up. And it's the same with Salford City. You know, we have a manager, we have a director of football, they run things, but obviously with big decisions, then we'll all get together as a group. But yeah, it's interesting, you know, it's different aspects. A lot is the same as sport, is the same, you know, the preparation, the decision making, the culture, the staff, you know, getting the right people. Some people will always let you down. It's dealing with that. So a lot of similarities.
Gary Neville, though, I mean, I watch football. My lad's a City fan, unfortunately.
Right.
So I'm not a massive football fan in terms I'll watch it, but I don't have a particular team.
Yeah.
But I do like listening to Gary Neville. I like listening to Roy Keane. Who's your favourite pundit on the Sky at the moment? Mine personally it's got to be Roy Keane. I just love. I know it. Whether he does it for a bit of, you know, to create the controversy or what, but he just says it how it is. And I think, you know, sometimes it needs to be said, sat in your front room watching the TV. He says, I think, what a lot of people are actually thinking sat at home.
No, I mean, the thing with Roy, it's not an act. That's what he was like. That's what he was like as a player. He would tell you, he would tell anyone. And that's him. And it's great value to watch because he knows what he's talking about. He doesn't sort of mince his words. And it can be great TV sometimes. But also, I mean, Roy as a player, you know, he used to look after young lads' contracts. He used to, if he's seen a player who had a bad injury, he would talk to them in the gym. You know, he was a really good captain and a lot of empathy. But obviously what everyone sees at the moment is, you know, Roy angry and having a go at someone. He's not always like that. He's like that 2 or 3% of the time. The rest of the time, he's great and great company.
He came down to Warrington once. He watched us train a couple of times.
Well, yeah, he used to come down with Cleggy. Was Cleggy there?
That was it. Yeah, Mike Clegg.
Yeah.
So Mike Clegg would come down, and he brought a couple of players. And it was really interesting when Roy Keane came down, because after one of the training sessions, he stood up in front of us as a group, talked a little bit about his United games, but then just stood in front of us all. And we'd played Wigan in the Challenge Cup quarter-final. We were the oldest at the Challenge Cup. We got knocked out. And he came in, and all of a sudden he just went on to this bit of a rant to us, didn't he, Micky, saying that I knew you was going to lose that game because I could see you in the warm-up. You wasn't focused. He said, Wigan were ripping people's heads off in the warm-up. He said, and in the tunnel, I looked at you. He said, and you guys were chatting, and Wigan was, you know, they was growling, basically. Yeah. And he touched on the fact that he felt that when he was playing at United would win games in the tunnel. Yeah. He said because of the attitude and the persona that they would give out to the opposition as they were stood next to each other.
Yeah. No, I mean, he don't miss a trick. And he never did as a player, as a coach. You know, very often after games, if we hadn't won, he would go for someone, and, you know, he could smell it in training, the way that you were going on about, you scored a hat-trick last week and you've been messing about all this week. I knew you weren't prepared. So, like I said, he was exactly the same. He didn't miss a trick.
Yeah.
But we used to always, I don't know if he said we would have our evening meal in the hotel at 7 o'clock, and then we would watch Super League. So me, Roy, Michael Carrick enjoyed it, Nicky Bott. So we would all watch these. I know he was a big rugby fan.
He told a story, actually. I saw a clip, just a small snippet on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about when Wayne Rooney first came to the club, and he started coming downstairs, and he turned the TV over, and he said he was watching the Super League, and Wayne Rooney put Britain's Got Talent on.
Yeah. Oh. And then he had someone had the remote.
some very brave player to do that to Roy Keane, and Tony Adams actually was saying about, he was the president for the Rugby League, so he was saying that he wanted to get a charity game going. He said there was only Stuart Pearce and Roy Keane who wanted to play rugby, half rugby, then we'd do the second half playing football. He said Roy Keane and Stuart Pearce put their hand up. He said, but nobody else did. was going for it. But no, I think, any more questions from you there, Mick? Because I think we've got a great insight there. I've got exactly what I felt like, we needed to get from that session. It was fantastic insight to Manchester United, yourself, Sir Alex Ferguson, and I think your career has just been absolutely outstanding. There was George Best was saying that one day some people might say he reminded people of Ryan Giggs, which I think is a massive compliment. If you've got people like George Best saying that, then you're doing something right. So I'd just like to say thanks for coming on. Sorry,
eldest lad, he's a football fan.
Hi mate, you alright? You just got out of bed?
What? This is now times have changed, mate. It's 12 o'clock. He's got his dressing going on. That's what we're talking about. And he wants to be a sports star when he's older. He should have been like
Xbox, will he?
There you go. I've had an outside boot camp this morning, 7:30. You know what I mean? He should have been there with me.
Well, me and my son have been on a bike ride this morning, 8 o'clock.
There you go. Well,
he wanted to stay in bed as well. Just open the curtains and rip the duvet off.
There you go. He might realise coming from you now.
But no, yeah, I think all the I've had a couple of messages on my Instagram from my son's friends today. Jake Donaldson says, will you tell Ryan Giggs is the greatest of all time? I've been telling everyone you're my best mate and we go for coffees because they've been asking how we've got you on. So all these young lads are like, they're proper loving me at the minute. But no, it's been appreciated. I know you're busy going down doing the last day of the Premier League tomorrow. So, we appreciate your time. And
no problem. I've enjoyed it, lads.
Yeah, thanks very much. And hopefully we'll catch you in your restaurant over in Worsley at some point. Micky owes me a meal, so
yeah. Oh no, I owe him for that first year. No.
Oh yeah.
Thanks again,
lads. Cheers. Good luck.
Thanks again. Right, take care, mate. Much appreciated.
Cheers. Thanks, Ryan. Thank you, mate. Cheers.